Let's come back to France now, where President Emmanuel Macron answered questions on live TV for over 2 hours Tuesday in a new attempt to try and boost his presidency. Macron talked about preserving France's struggling health system, boosting economic growth, and working with the possible new President Trump once again. He also talked about the fight against the far right in France, led by main political adversary, far-right party leader Marine Le Pen.
I think to limit the return of the extremes, and in particular of the far right, is to fight what makes them popular. The first thing is mass unemployment. It's a French peculiarity. We're a big economy that hasn't been able to fix this problem. We're currently doing it. The second element is immigration, the fight against illegal immigration.
We're going to talk more about Macron's speech now with Jean-Christophe Gallien, who joins me on the set. Hello, Jean-Christophe.
Hello.
Always a pleasure to have you. Let's start with that. There we hear Emmanuel Macron talking about the national right, Marine Le Pen, and the national right is rising in the polls. Do you think he is really capable of keeping them down, particularly in the European elections that are coming up in June?
I'm not sure about that, because even though the whole sequence, if you broaden the picture, starting from the the greetings at 31st of December, through his the way he talked about Jacques Delors, the ceremony, and now the whole changing of the government with Attal facing his counterpart, the generational counterpart, Jordan Bardella. Everything is done, to my point of view, the whole sequence, and we had the confirmation yesterday evening, the whole sequence is about trying to narrow the gap that probably the polls are promising to us for the European elections. So today, the national right is the Rassemblement National is about 30%, and the Renaissance, the president's party, is about 20%. So it's a gap of 10%. And today, the whole thing is about that today. And yesterday is obvious. He became alive. He became a campaigner. He became what he was before when a question came on this party and the whole sequence.
We also have to remind everybody, it's not just the European elections coming up, but the presidential elections coming up in 2027.
Yeah.
Macron cannot run again. That'll be the end of his second term. He's beaten Marine Le Pen twice in the past. If he's not in the running, could she become president of France?
For them, it's a big challenge too, because that 30% score is probably the way of telling the people, the whole parties, the opposition, and probably the whole general public, that if we do 30% at this election, which is a big score, then we'll be able to be in final like we were the last competitions. But we're there to win. Last time it was about we were challengers, and we were not possible. We were not in a capacity to win. But that time, giving a 30% 2 years and a half earlier, which is a big change. It's something that you break the screen, and this is something really new, and this is a challenge for them. And for Macron, the same. So if they hit 30%, probably they can be in the final, and in the final to win the presidential election. If not, we probably say they will be there in final, but probably losing into 2027.
So Macron does have a lot of work ahead of him. He has 3.5 years to go in this term. One of the big focuses in the speech yesterday was education. Amongst all the different things that he said, possible uniforms, putting theaters back in school, the Marseillaise. What stuck out for you?
But again, he was he talking to the young people? I'm not sure, because if the young people were listening yesterday, which probably they were not, because 2 hours and a half is probably too long for them. And especially listening to the president telling them they don't know the Marseillaise. They don't even know the big Republican, text about things. They need to wear the uniform. Probably they were the rioters when the riots came outside. So, and they're looking too much on their telephone screens because they only think about the social networks. It is crazy. So he was talking not to the young people, probably to that older people, which constitute probably the main DNA of his electorate, and he needs to mobilize these people again for next June, which is the European election time. So he was not talking. And education was about the young people, but quite something very strange around these young people. We had to, guard them better, which we knew it was very strong against them, probably against them more than for them.
Mm-hmm. Education, also a bit of a controversial subject at the moment. He's having some trouble with his education minister. Just wrap that up very quickly for us. And how big an issue is that going to be?
It's probably more than, it used to be a communication issue, then it became a political issue. Now it's probably the governmental issue, because she's facing a big community, you know, national education in France at 1.2 million people, very strong, and always a very, like, it's confronting, you know, the minister, probably the prime minister and the president every time. And now she's quite weak because she did that big mistake and she's trying to excuse herself, again excusing. Yesterday, Macron was very strong about it, but he was strong, probably not the minister and probably not Attal the same.
What was your feeling about what Macron had to say about international policy, the different things that he said, particularly how he's ready to work with a possible new President Trump?
Yeah, he was quite clear about that at the end of the press conference, probably too much at the end. And he was clear about Ukraine. Ukraine needs to win the war. He was clear about, well, if Mr. Trump comes, we already work together, good things and bad things. And I'm not talking with Mr. Trump. I'm working with the United States. And our ally, our main ally for Europeans is the United States. He was very clear about that. So he was quite, you know, he was good at that point. Probably he didn't talk about Africa. He chose you know, the issues, and probably saying globally, this was the main message. You know, we are a generational responsibility because the world is changing so fast. You know, this is our period, and we need to be in front of that period very strong, especially in France, but at European level too, in between China and the USA, in between probably the Muslim countries and the other countries. And this is our pathway to succeed for France and for Europe.
Jean-Christophe, just to wrap up very quickly, he was talking a lot about education. If you were to give him a grade for this performance yesterday from 0 to 20, like we do in France, what did he get?
I think he was, if you look at the fact that he wanted to fight against a party which is his main opponent, he was good at that point because at that sequence he was like very strong. But for the rest, for the young people especially, it was not so good because he was too much, you know, self-content. He assumed kind of we did everything. Not everything is good, but probably we're going to succeed. And before us, nothing was done. So the grade was like, you know, let's say average 10 for them.
10 for Macron. All right, Jean-Christophe, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Jean-Christophe Gallien, who is with me here on the set. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Macron will be continuing to push forward his 2024 agenda at the World Economic Forum in Davos today, where he will lay out the highlights of the year, including, of course, the Paris Olympics this summer.